Gasper, save me. What do you think about Bill Belichick at this hour and the decision facing Robert Kraft?
Yeah, I think that if Robert Kraft is going to make the decision that he should make at this point, then he would make the decision the way Bill Belichick would make the decision, which would be unsentimentally and without any regard for past accomplishment and what someone's done in the past, only how much they have left and what they would do for the team moving forward based on the current state of the team. I think if you handed Bill Belichick a ready-to-go contender right now, he'd do a great job. I think that team would be in the Super Bowl. Like if you handed him the Cowboys, they're in the Super Bowl. He can still coach. But I don't think at this point in his career, as much as I'd like to see him come back for a 25th year, and I would sentimentally, if I put my Bill Belichick, bloodless Bill Belichick hat on, I don't think he's the right coach for this team, given where they're at. Because I don't think he can really admit to himself where they are, which is a team that needs to rebuild. Because in order to do that, he would have to admit that some of the things and some of the football philosophies he has, some of the things he believes in, some of the things he told Robert Kraft that he could do, or at least intimated to Robert Kraft he could do without Tom Brady, are not right and have to change. And I just think that comment you played from Mike Reese, I think a couple of years ago when he was asked the question in the press conference about the fans and being with him through the ups and the downs, and he says, well, there haven't been a lot of downs. I just don't think he can look at this thing objectively at this point and move forward and do what it takes to rebuild it. I don't think he's the right guy for a rebuild.
What about
this team?
Again, our feelings on this are clear, but just to get it from you, what if they bring someone else to manage the department, a new GM, new personnel, etc.? Is there a path there for you?
There might, yeah. I mean, look, again, the sentimental part of me is willing to give that a go, right? And I would be okay with it on a certain level if it's somebody from the outside, somebody who is coming from outside the organization, or even like, Eli Wolf, who has worked outside the organization before and has like I need a different philosophy at some level. And that doesn't mean we can't merge philosophies. We can, but it can't be, we're just bringing back Dave Ziegler, or we're just bringing back this person who's really going to be beholden to Bill. And it can't be somebody that he is able to undermine. So that person has to report directly to ownership. And when I really start to think about that, while I would be okay with it on a certain level, isn't that really just a half measure? And how long would you do that for? Doesn't that sound like you're just doing that for a year or two? Don't you start to, at this point, need to bring somebody in here who you look at and you can look at them and say, this person's going to be here 3, 4, 5 years, because that's what it might take to get us back to Super Bowl contention. You probably get back to the playoffs faster than that. But real legitimate Super Bowl contention, don't you have to look, isn't Bill's whole thing better a year early than a year late? And I think that's kind of where they should be at with him if they're doing this correctly. And it's not about sentiment. It's not about, PR and not wanting to be the bad guy, which I think is a real factor here for Robert Kraft. I think if you just did it the way Bill did it, the way that they believe as an organization, they have done things, and that has been utmost responsible for their success. What they've done managerially and operationally, not necessarily the players, then wouldn't you just follow through on that protocol with Belichick if you believe in it so much?
Chris, recognizing that Bill O'Brien has been here before, wasn't that a half measure? I mean, you just talked about half measures. Wasn't Bill O'Brien a half measure?
I don't think that was the intent of it. I really don't. I think maybe you could look at it now and say it was, but I don't think that was the intent at the time. I think if you move forward with the half measure of having Bill remain as coach, and you're bringing somebody back who's been in the front office before and could be beholden to him, then I think you're doing that with the intent of, the quote unquote elegant solution. I think they really thought Bill O'Brien would be able to come in here and make a bigger difference than he did. I think maybe they thought he'd have a little bit more leeway than he has had.
Exactly. Don't you think that was undermined by power struggles and, little things like that? And why would that be any different if you hired a GM? Wouldn't it just be a bigger entree to have more of those problems?
Well, again, you know how I stand on it, but just to play devil's advocate for why you could do that if it's somebody from the outside, is now, does Bill O'Brien report directly to Robert Kraft? I honestly don't know the answer, but I doubt it. He's still part of Belichick's staff. In fact, didn't he say this year when asked about the Malik Cunningham thing, that's a Bill and Matt Groh. Not only does Bill O'Brien, in my estimation, not report directly to Robert Kraft, there's like 2 layers between him. There's Groh and Belichick between him and Kraft. If you bring in somebody from the outside, the only way it could possibly work to run personnel is that person has to report to ownership. But I think you should, at this point, you should just rip the Band-Aid off altogether. I think it's time to move on, really, for both parties. Again, I think there's going to be, and it might not happen right away. If I'm the Patriots, maybe you come to some sort of understanding with Bill, but I wouldn't move on from him on like Monday. I would let some of these teams in the playoffs with big expectations, Cowboys, flame out, and then see if somebody feels differently or feels emotionally and is willing to give you something for him, or he looks at that and says, that's a great situation for me to go there. That team's ready to win. He can still coach. If you hand him a team with talent that's ready to win, they're going to be better because he's there. But that's not this team. He's not the right. And that's so. How many times have we talked about quarterbacks and players? Oh, this guy didn't go to the right team, wasn't the right situation. Isn't it the same for a coach in a lot of ways? Like, this is no longer the right situation for him, and he's no longer the right coach for them.
I'm surprised you're overrating Bill as a coach so much.
You think so?
Yeah, I mean, on a couple levels. I mean, here's one.
Okay.
Here's one. Is he going to make Micah Parsons 2-gap? He wants those guys to, hey, look, you can't rush deeper than the quarterback, and you can't be outside the outside guy, or you can't be deeper than the deepest, whatever that expression is that they use on the pass rush. And I want you to
stay in your rush lane.
I want you to be able to cover. I want you to be able to go back as much as you go forward. You have to set the edge. You have to take on blockers. I don't want you. This is how he wants his defenders to play. Who's the other a big guy up front there for Dallas?
Lawrence.
Does he want Lawrence? How's he going to coach those guys? Are we going to be 2-gapping up there? What if a young receiver puts a ball on the ground early in the season? Is he going to stay with him, or is he going to sit him like Demario Douglas? I mean, does he really fit? And it doesn't feel like the jackass factor with this Dallas team is what it has been in the past.
Sure.
It feels like they got some good competitive guys there.
I know you lived the experience, Felge. Have you seen McCarthy's situational game management?
He blows.
At the end of some of these games.
I'm not talking about McCarthy. I'm talking about Bill managing a modern NFL team with modern talent that is probably smaller and faster than he's used to dealing with on defense. And again, I don't know if this Dallas team really qualifies with what I'm about to say, but ego or neediness, needing to be coddled and explained, all these things. I think all that stuff has passed him by and makes him a bad fit, Chris. Even with the talented team, it's got to be the right kind of talent. It's got to be the right kind of mentality. That's got to be a mature, hardworking team for him to work, even if it's talented.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, look, you raised some valid points. I just think if you're a team that's really close, and this is the biggest mistake that a lot of these Belichick acolytes make when they leave here. The experience of playing, and Belichick by his own admission has said, I'm not an easy guy to play for. But they come in and they implement the system, right? And they're starting from scratch without the winning. It's the winning that makes it all tolerable. So if you come into it and you're a team that needs to get over the top and you haven't been able to do it, I think you'd be more receptive to someone who's won. And if he's coming in and doing some of the things he's done here in the past, and the idea is, hey, this guy can get us over the top where we haven't been able to do it, then maybe they would be more receptive to it. I think that's kind of the difference. But it's when you're losing and the guy's pressing you and it's a miserable slog and he's on you all the time and it's not fun, then, why should you buy in? What's the point, of buying in at all? It's always, they always, I think a lot of these acolytes were like, it's the way we do things, the way we hold people accountable that, leads to the winning. It's like, actually, it's the other way around. You can hold people accountable in that way because you win. But if you don't win, they're not going to listen to you long enough to get to the winning. And that's what's happened to McDaniels. It's what happened to Patricia. But it's what happens to most of these guys. So I just think if Bill coaches again, he needs a team that's like set up and ready to go. That's pretty close, like already a contending team.